And then told nobody that
air out of the balloon when I saw it.
That's right.
How you doing?
All right.
Now we can begin.
Yeah, that's
Would
right.
we like to call this March meeting of the MPC to order, but ask if you would join us as we stand and receive a prayer from Mr. Windsor Andrews and be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Ms. Leah Moto.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for this day, and once again, we thank you for so many of the undeserved blessings that we each enjoy from day to day. We pray you continue to forgive us for many sins, deeds, and thoughts that perhaps are not pleasant in our sight. We thank you for the opportunity to be of service. We thank you for those who come from our communities requesting improvements that they feel will help better for citizens of our community. Bless these proceedings. It is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome you to the regular scheduled public meeting of the Shreveport-Caddo Parish Metropolitan Planning Commission for public hearing agenda items. If you wish to make public comments on an application, we have MPC comment slips at the speaker stand next to the podium. For future notification purposes, it is very important that you'll fill out a slip and drop it in the box when you come forward to speak. Please state your full name, mailing address, and zip code before addressing the board. We will call each case on the agenda in order and hear first from the applicant and then those wishing to speak in favor. 10 minutes are allotted for the principal spokesperson and 3 minutes for each additional speaker. We will then hear from those wishing to speak against the application. Again, 10 minutes are allotted for the principal spokesperson and 3 minutes for each additional speaker. One representative of the application can then speak in rebuttal if desired. After hearing comments on each case, the board will then immediately deliberate and vote on that case before moving on to the next case on our agenda. Please note that when the board is deliberating, members of the public are not permitted to comment. Any member of the public may request a copy of the board's decisions on a particular case by contacting our office at 318-673-6480 after 1 p.m. Tomorrow, or by accessing our website at shreveportcattlempc.com. For consent agenda items and other agenda items not requiring a public hearing, public comments can be made upon request by filling out an MPC comment slip. If comments are requested for a specific agenda item, the chair will offer an opportunity for those comments prior to the commission taking action on the agenda item. All of the MPC board decisions are subject to appeal to either the City Council or the Parish Commission, depending on the location of the property in question. Please note that it is your responsibility to contact the appropriate governing body about their procedures as related to the matter you are concerned with. Copies of this document and the phone numbers to contact the governing bodies are available on the table next to the podium and in the entryway to this room. As a courtesy, please remember to turn off all cell phones with the MPC while the MPC board is in session. The commission values your testimony and appreciates your compliance with these guidelines. Thank you. We'll now turn to our agenda for today. We have first the approval of minutes for our February 1st meeting and UDC special call public hearing. Minutes for February 8, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Smith, a second by Dr. Pennywell to approve. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, if you would, raise your right hand.
The computers are not working.
Computer's not working. All opposed, vote aye. I mean, same sign.
Yeah,
All
they're
right.
working.
It passes.
I think they're working.
Oh, they
now.
are?
They're working.
Latest update.
Oh, okay.
Only I voted.
Thank you.
All right, we can
I
vote.
was told they weren't working. Good, they are working.
We can vote now. Passes.
Dr. Pennywell, get yours again. Okay. All right, that passes unanimously. Next, we have our consent agenda items. They begin at number 6 and go through number 11. Items 6 through 11. What's your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Andrews, a second by Ms. Smith to approve the items that fall on our consent agenda. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor vote yes. Opposed, no. Right, it passes unanimously. Thank you. For those who were here for items 6 through 11, they've just been approved. So if you're here for anything from 6 through 11, those cases have been approved on the consent agenda. Next, we'll have public hearings for case number SP 41-17 for preliminary and final plat. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this item? Yes, sir.
John R. Bowman Jr., 3833 Southern Avenue, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71106. We have a proposed 20-lot subdivision kind of south and west of Blanchard. Manufactured home lots, 1 acre. All lots over 1 acre. Glad to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Thank you. Any questions?
I don't.
You have?
No, I don't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who's here to speak in favor of this application? Anybody here to speak in favor of this application? Are there any here to speak in opposition to this application? Seeing none, Commission, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Day-Matu and a second by Ms. Smith to approve case number SP 41-17. Any questions?
None.
Seeing none, all in favor vote yes, all opposed no. This passes. Thank you. Our next case is case number SC-46-17. It's preliminary and final plat. It's Providence Development Company.
My name is Bob Basinger with Fort and Tablata Engineering, 920 Piermont Road, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71105. This is another unit in Providence. It's a single-family residential. It's consistent with the master plan that has been approved previously. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you. Are there any others who are here to speak in favor of this application? Anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? All right, seeing none, Commissioners,
So moved.
have a motion by Ms. Smith,
Second.
second by Mr. Young. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor vote yes, opposed no. Passes unanimously. Our next case is case number SC 47-17, preliminary and final plat. Again, Providence Development Company. Welcome back.
Thank you. My name's still Bob Basinger, 920 Piermont Road, Shreveport, 71105. This is another unit at Providence, single-family residential, and consistent with the master plan. Any questions?
Anybody any questions? All right, thank you so much. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? If not, is anybody here to speak in opposition to this application? All right, seeing none,
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Day-Matu, second by Mrs. Smith. No questions? All in favor vote yes, all opposed no. Passes unanimously. Our next case, case number C-19-17, it's a zoning request. Michael Kelch.
Hey, good afternoon. Michael Kelch with Raylan Associates, 4913 Shed Road, Bossier City, Louisiana, 71111. Here representing Best Yet Uri. Basically, we're planning on rezoning from B2 to I1 in order to put a self-storage facility. Here to answer any questions.
Ms. Smith?
Yeah, I have a question. When you say self-storage, will you go into a little detail what it's talking about? What would be housed in there?
I don't know, are y'all familiar with Best Yet Storage in Bossier City off of 220? It's kind of like a climate-controlled storage where, you know, I think it's gonna be about a 50,000 square foot facility, and you go in and kind of, each person has access to their own storage facility. It's all indoor.
I'm just wondering if I can have cars and things.
Ms. Best, is that it?
Could be. Yeah, they could be doing it. It's climate control. Could be going on.
Climate control was what I was concerned about,
Yes, ma'am.
and I'm just thinking, I don't have too many cars, but I was just thinking, is that what you'd be housing there? You know, to keep them cool during the summer?
Yes, ma'am. It's all kept at a certain temperature.
That's what I'm
Yes, ma'am.
concerned about. Thank you, you've answered. Thank you. I don't
Safe
have
deposit
many,
box.
but if you don't keep them cool,
Any other
start
questions?
shedding.
Any other questions?
I know that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That's what happened to some of mine.
Is there anyone else who's here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here who is to speak in opposition, who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? Right, seeing none, thank you. Commission,
Mr. Chair, motion to approve.
a motion by Mr. Young,
Second.
second by Mrs. Smith. Any other questions? All in favor vote yes, all opposed no. This passes as well. That's the end of our public hearing for today. We have some other business. I do, if the commission wants to at this time, I do have one request to speak. If you are so inclined to entertain that at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. It's not on the agenda, but I do have a request to speak. All in favor vote yes, all opposed no. Thank you.
Don't pick her up, Mr. Chair.
Okay, just if you would just raise your hand if you'll consent. All opposed? All right.
Oh.
Mr. Rob Broussard, 451 Sanderson. Mr.
Mr.
Broussard.
Broussard.
So appropriate. Always good.
Thank you, MPC Board, staff, Mr. Jackson. We're here to offer an amendment to Article 16.4G. I think everybody has one of those.
Name.
Rob Broussard, 451 Sanford, Shreveport, Louisiana. Everybody has a copy of the proposed appeal, and basically what we're doing is asking that we allow that appellate process to continue as was in existence under the old MPC codes, and that would help smaller people, if you will, or small businesses that don't have a lot of money for the appellate process to hire attorneys to go to district court.
That it?
That's it.
Anybody have any questions? I'm assuming this is for future consideration. Ms.
Oh,
Cooper?
it's not working. What have the city council members, what's your feedback from them about whether or not they are interested in it?
Well, we haven't got there yet. They told us that we had to come through y'all first before we
Well, I
could
mean, I'm
talk
just
about
saying,
it.
not their approval, just their feedback. Do they want to do this?
Well, yes, in city council meetings, they ask us, have we brought it to y'all first? So we had to come to the MPC board before it would even be considered for discussion. So we haven't gone and lobbied or anything for this. We're following process and procedure.
Oh, I'm just curious because they just passed this. They just passed it the way it's written. And we've gone back and forth with them with all sorts of amendments, and they did not bring this up, so.
Well, that's not what I think they said in the meeting, Mr. Sweeney. Didn't they suggest that this go back through the process, be introduced?
What the city attorney said is that any future revisions to the UDC would have to start with the MPC board.
Right. And so this was
So basically, this is, excuse me, so basically this is something that you're recommending, but it's something that ultimately we would have to concur with.
Right.
If we didn't concur, that would be the end of that.
Well, I mean, it's being proposed as an amendment to the UDC. I mean, if
Yeah,
y'all
no.
don't concur, I mean, that's your vote, you know?
No, by concur, I mean have to vote affirmative.
Yes, absolutely. Mhm. Yes, ma'am.
Is this just you, or is there a group of people behind this, or who?
Well, actually, an attorney wrote this appeal, Mr. Settle, and he's in the hospital, and so he asked me to stand and present it.
Just one person, and you're representing Mr. Settle?
Right.
So Mr. Settle's recommending this is not a big outcry from small businesses, as you referred to, or any other
Well,
businesses?
I'm sure that if it got put before a public hearing or it was brought to a, you know, when it goes through the normal process, people can come and say whether they agree with it or not.
With all due respect, it was brought to the public for many, many years.
Oh, it has? Well, I mean,
It was passed in the UDC.
so is this,
Okay, that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney, is it part of the UDC, written like this?
No, what she's saying that the city council, what they adopted last night was the new wording that says that ZBA's decisions go to district court.
Yeah, so we're asking it not go to district court.
I understand what you're
Right.
asking. Thank you.
That's no problem. Any other questions for Mr. Broussard? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda were updates, master plan, I should say, implementation report. Mr. Sweeney?
Yes, sir. Well, as has already been said, and I sent you an email on this yesterday, it might have been Fat Tuesday, but it was also Victory Tuesday because the City Council approved the Unified Development Code with the amendments at a vote of 6-1 last night. It was a very good meeting. It went very smoothly. I had Arista Strungis with us from Camiros was present. She didn't even have to answer a question, but she was here for training because we've already started the training program for our staff. And so the thing that they did do, if you remember, there was an amendment by Mr. Arsenault about how you handle projects between the adoption and the effective date. Remember, we had a long conversation about that. Well, we came to a solution for CarMax, and they love it. And it's an approach that means they can get something done that will work really well for them. So Mr. Arsenault said, we don't care about that amendment anymore, and so the City Council turned that amendment down.
I had a feeling that was going to happen.
So just I want you to know that, and everyone was on the same page, and everyone was very agreeable about
I've
that.
gotten very good feedback from the
But
comments.
anyway, so that was, I mean, we actually had a good meeting with the CarMax folks just a few weeks ago, laid out a pathway, and they realized what it meant, and that it would get them off the hook about being connected to any effective date. So that was it was a valuable meeting. So, the other thing I was going to mention is that, of course, this now goes on to the Parish Commission for consideration on March the 23rd. That's when they will take a vote. So we're preparing all the documentation. It takes quite a royal effort to get all the documentation, all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted to go through ordinance adoption. So we worked very closely with the city attorney and with Art on the city council side, and we're doing the same thing with Todd and with Henry Bernstein on the commission side, so that we can get everything in order for that meeting on the 23rd. I'd just like to let you know that I only have about $8,900 left in my account for the Camiros contract. And so I am remember we started off with $450,000. That was over 4 years ago. So I'm going to reuse the remaining money. She's going to come back again in April for a training session for us. And something that I wanted to make y'all aware of, we're going to have a manual. I call it the Guide to the UDC. And I will make sure that y'all all get a copy of the manual. And the public's available. If they want a copy, they can get it. But especially my staff members need it. Because part of this is getting everybody to understand how all these pieces fit. And that's the reason why we needed that transition period before the effective date of May the 15th. So she'll come back for one more trip, bring us the manual, We'll have an all-day training session that day. We're actually doing some of our own training with our own staff already, started that process. And so that'll pretty much finish out that contract. And so I think we're going to go right down to the penny. And I think it will, I think just to let you know that I've been very conservative about having her come into town because I knew that cost us a lot of money. So she's only been here, I think, twice in the last year. So that's pretty good. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that the other thing that I was going to bring to your attention.
Mark?
Yes.
Just before you move on.
No, I'll let him finish, then I'll ask my questions about implementation dates and those types of things.
Go ahead.
Okay. You want to talk about the UDC?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and ask me.
Okay, I know you said May 15th, and I apologize once again for not making the lunch meeting today, and you probably covered some of this, but anticipate as May 15th kickoff. In the past, we had talked about, real quick, and this is strictly on your shoulders because you're the executive director, but how hard this transition was going to be.
Right.
And currently have enough staff because this is a big changeover, because this is a retraining and re-education in the whole 9 yards. And because I can only envision that certain key people of your staff are probably 80-90%, but I'm sure that there are some other key members that have been doing the day-to-day on the old ordinances that are going to take some. It's a new revelation. It's a new way of doing things and everything else. And so, if I remember correctly, we were still a couple staff positions short. I'm not talking about Mr. Jambor leaving.
Right.
Prior to that.
Right.
Is that still accurate?
I think we still have a vacancy, but I have most everything filled now. And to answer your question is, if I wanted the optimum level of preparedness, it would be wonderful if I had it fully staffed all the way to do it. But our financial resources don't give us that option. And that's okay. We're going to do with what we have. And so I know that when we fill Mr. Jambor's old position, I've tweaked that somewhat and I've made it a little different. And so when we get that individual, he or she comes on board, then that will put us in a much better position because that person's going to work on a lot of the long-range planning elements that includes things that will come out with the master plan subcommittee and all that kind of stuff. So yes, there's a lot of moving parts here. I will never be able to tell you unless somebody just gave us flush with money one day, which we're not going to get, would I ever be in a position today to say that we have everything we need. But we'll be fine if we stay focused and this is what I've told my staff. You must read it, you must absorb it, and we will help you with each of the training parts. One of the most important parts of the training, and Alan Clark will tell you this, is making certain his inspectors understand what they're enforcing. So we're going to have a whole effort to try to make sure they're totally up to par. So a lot of this is internal, and I'm going to segue to something that Theron has mentioned in the past, and that is one of the things we also want to do once I get my staff trained is that we need to do a series of outreach meetings where we offer training to developers, realtors, and just Joe Blow citizens.
That's where I was going next.
And so what we're going to do is I'm trying to work that out because I won't be using Camaros to do that. That'll be totally on our shoulders because I can't afford to do that. So I'm going to come up with a series of meetings that will be where we take digestible pieces of the ordinance and say, if you're interested in knowing how to do a site plan, come to this meeting and we'll advertise it. If you're interested in knowing how the signage ordinance is going to work, you know there's a bunch of people that are going to want to know that, come to this meeting. And we're going to do that. We're going to try to do that over the course of the next year. And we're going to just have to try to figure out good times to do that. I haven't determined that exactly yet, but I think it's absolutely necessary because there's no way I can educate everybody, but we do need to make a royal effort to try to reach as many people as we can.
I think it's fair to say, and I don't want to belabor this because if anybody needs to get home, I need to get home. Last night, I don't think to use Trump as an analogy, but last night, part of this country realized, oh my God, that's my president.
That's right.
30 days after May 15th, people are going to realize, oh my God, the UDC actually passed.
Absolutely.
Okay? and it's a different world. And how we convey that
Yes.
in the one-on-one meetings, y'all do the pre-meetings, those type of things. Matter of fact, I sent somebody the other day to do a pre-meeting, asked some questions about stuff. I said, you need to call, set an appointment, do a pre-meeting. They'll charge you, and they'll tell you if it's doable or not doable, and or at least point you in the right direction, give you a good idea. And I really think June 15th, everybody's going to wake up and say, the UDC actually passed, and it's actually in force, and it's actually in place now, which is going to be that oh my God moment
Right.
that they're going to go through. So I think just properly being prepared to hand walk them through like y'all are doing right now with the pre-meetings and everything else is critical to point them in the right direction. So, because there's going to be confusion.
There is.
You can't rewrite 60 years worth of code in one swoop and not be confusing. So thank y'all. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Stephen has something.
Oh,
I just want to, you know, I mentioned this before at the last meeting, but we had set up a transition committee. That transition committee has been trying to identify the issues that we're talking about. We're already reached out to some of, to organizations to try to see if we can fit them in to their regular meeting schedule. Some of them do CEUs, and so they'd like for us to come because, and we've done this in the past when we've had changes in the subdivision ordinances. We've done that on at least 2 occasions that I can think of. We've had major changes. So we've already started that plan to get that together. I think another thing I will have to note, the public, especially a lot of Mr. Kelcher was just here a minute ago, he came to us with an application, and he already had the designations for the UDC on his application. I mean, so a lot of the public has already become students, and then we're walking them through that. Yes, I believe you're absolutely correct, but we're not going to be able to take care of all the contingencies, but we're trying to work through those things and see if we can at least minimize the kind of issues that you're talking about.
I'll leave it with this. The only other thing is when you schedule those, if you want to call them training classes specific to signage or whatever, please tag us to those, because
Absolutely.
if we can make those meetings, that gives us a better understanding.
Amen.
And so we're not up here asking silly questions in front of the public. So we'll, because it's one thing when you write a document, it's another thing when you put it in a full force and effect. And so the implementation side and the requirement side sometimes has a little bit different take on it. And so you kind of have to read through the fine print to figure out, well, no, this is what it means. And so for us to have a better understanding of that as well would be better. So if we can make some of those meetings would be great, so it gives us better insight as well.
I agree.
I don't know if we'll actually do it, but one of the things that I have asked the staff to do is to plan those meetings in such a way that it kind of organically happens that way. Because I think it shouldn't necessarily be a scenario that is convenient, but it should be a requirement, because we need to know it as much as we can from the implementation side. So I don't know what we'll do yet, and Mr. Sweeney and I continue to talk about that, but my recommendation had been to have 1-hour meetings, and those 1-hour meetings would last from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. on days like today, so that we kill all of these birds with one stone. And so if we ate lunch at 1 or whatever the case may be, but there would be a meeting on whatever the subject may be before each of those meetings, and so that would be a time when people could come down and do that too. And board members would already have those moments etched in their calendar already as well. So we haven't finalized that. That was just an observation I said.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I do think we ought to be involved. Ms. Smith?
Okay. Well, I think just about everything been said, what I wanted to say, because as a board member, I was saying I certainly would like to be included with that training, but I didn't get the date. I think it's a fantastic idea. Was it March through 23rd of May?
March 23rd is when the Parish Commission is going to vote on the UDC.
Okay.
And the date that the new ordinance goes into effect is May 15th.
May 15th.
And we'll get back with you about what the scheduled dates will be for the training.
Sounds great. I have another question.
Yes,
Watching the city council, and this too has been on my mind, like if you're in a subdivision and you're on 1 acre, is it my understanding that you can have horses and, correct me, I heard him talking about it yesterday. You was doing a magnificent job, but elaborate a little bit.
There's 3 districts that you can have livestock in.
Mm-hmm.
That is agricultural, what they call residential estate, and R112, okay? So what we were talking about yesterday is that we had a group of people in an area that already had horses, several neighbors.
I know.
And they said, well, on your zoning map, you've got it designated as R17, which doesn't allow for horses. And so they said, please make us something that allows for horses. So we moved them back to R112, which made them happy, knowing that at some point, because this is kind of out on the edge of the city, it's in the city limits, that at some point in time, that area which has very long lots that are not developable in the way they are now, will one day be bought and reconfigured for a new development, probably an R17 development, possibly a PUD like Providence. So we realized that for the time being, having it as R112 was workable for them. But if you are going to have a horse and you've never had a horse, you have to have a minimum of 1 acre for a horse.
Yeah, that's what I was
That's the
saying.
new provision. You also have to register your horse with the parish commission. That's a requirement too. So it says you can have a horse, but you got to have an acre, and within that acre, a certain percentage of that has to be for an adequate grazing area for the horse. In other words, we don't want 2 horses sitting in an area that's about the size of this horseshoe and say, well, that's okay for them. No, they have to have a larger area than that to have a workable, livable area for them to graze. So all those new provisions will go into effect with the UDC as they did on the 15th of May.
Okay.
All right?
That's good. Thank you.
I always like to tell people I've been riding a Bronco for almost 2.5 years, and I'm going to change over to another Bronco here in just a few minutes because I'm going to be doing when we go into the implementation, because the ride was wild and the ride will be wild exactly the way that Alan Young said it. It's going to be a challenge, and I know that you'll get phone calls, you'll get people asking you things, and that's why the education part that Theron's talking about is so important for us to do. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, seeing that I have a parish commissioner sitting in the audience, when you send out the training classes, tag them on in the city as well.
I will. And I'll tell you something. It was talking with Matthew Lynn that brought us to that conclusion about the R112, because his concern was with Dixie Gardens. And we knew that Dixie Gardens was in the same scenario as this area was. So we just said, hey guys, we've already got an idea over here that makes sense. We'll use it here. And it worked. So. And the only other thing I have to talk about is the fee thing.
Okay. So as far as implementation, this other staff report will be the fee structure?
Yes. I have given each of you a copy of the proposed fee structure. Let me explain something to you. Yes. So here's the thing. I'm giving it to you in advance so that we can act on this on April the 5th. Let me explain something to you, and I'm not going to go into great detail about it today because I'll do that more on the 5th of April. You have a memo that explains what's going on, and attached to the back of it is a proposed fee schedule. If you remember back at the end of 2015, actually in August of 2015, you approved a new change to the city's fee structure for applications. That went to the city council. The city council adopted that in December of 2015 so that we could have a better, it actually made a huge difference in our 2016 budget. So what you're really looking at is the city council approved fee structure. Basically 90% of this is that. But then you got to remember with the UDC, there's some new items that were not on the table, like special use permit or small plan unit development. All of those things are being added in now to a new fee structure. We also went back and updated some fees that had never been changed, which we never, having to do somewhat with the signage situation, as well as a few things that had been overlooked. So this is an opportunity for us to give you some updated fees that would be effective with the UDC. The goal is, and let me explain this to you, is for you to, we gave this for you to study, that's your homework. We'll have it on the agenda for the 5th. We'll probably be giving you more information between now and the 5th, and we'll talk about it in greater length on the 5th. And then if you choose to approve, or you can amend this whichever way you want to, if you approve that, then it will go on to the city council for their consideration, and then it will go on to the parish commission for their consideration. Because the goal is to have one unified fee structure as we do one unified code. And that means this would hopefully be adopted prior to or at the same time the code goes into effect on May the 15th. Otherwise, folks, when it goes into effect on May the 15th, I have no fees to charge. And we don't want to do that. That means no revenue. So we had to wait till some things kind of got put into place. So each body will get a chance to adopt this. And you know, we'll, if there are differences, we'll deal with that at the time. But the most important starting point is with you guys on April the 5th. So that's what we're going to do, and I'll talk to you far more about that. If you have questions during this next month that you have to review this, call me or email me. And like I said, we may have some subsequent information that we're going to give back to you on this. That's all I have to
Thank
say.
you.
Do we get to keep the parish fees after the UDC's passed?
Well, I can't answer that. That's not within my purview. So that's something that I know we can talk about.
All that old rules went off the book. The UDC's the new rules, so.
Well, yeah, I hear you. That rule about the parish retaining the application fees is actually not, is in a separate document undoubtedly, or a separate policy. So that, I don't have the opportunity to do anything about that. But it will mean the parish will get more money if they approve these fees.
Mr. Remedies?
I had a question on the temporary CO. It's going to be $75 for the temporary. It's on the first page at the bottom. It'll be $75, and then what is it currently? Is it $250 now?
It's $50 for a temporary. We're using the use approval. There's not really a separate item for it, so we're using the temporary use approval, but it's not really a separate item on the fee structure now. We separated it out on there. We consulted with our zoning administrator, and we just proposed a slight difference in fee amount for that, because there's a lot of verification that has to happen, because it's all tied to the landscaping. So that's why he thought it would be, in all of our discussions, thought it might be good to propose just a little bit of bump there. It was $50 before for the temporary. The certificate of occupancy itself was $125, and that's unchanged.
Right. We changed that the last time when y'all did the approval.
Okay, it says here that the fee for certificate of occupancy will be $250 in lieu of the $120.
What that is talking about is this is what we're proposing. We found this in other jurisdictions. If you're a business and you go and occupy your facility without getting a certificate of occupancy, and then through the process of enforcement, our zoning administrator says you have to go get that permit. Because you didn't get the permit ahead of time, you will pay double the fee, $250. The reason why we thought this was a good tool to be able to have some kind of, because right now we don't have anything punitive associated with somebody not doing it. So this is thought of an idea. He may never have to do this, but if someone goes out there and starts up business, and he gets out there and verifies that you don't have a C of O, when they go to take out that C of O, we'll flag it, and they'll be paying double the fee amount. And we are thinking, we have the same concept in the signs. Somebody goes out there and erects a sign, they don't get a permit for that sign. When they go get the permit, they pay double. Now, that's just an idea. We're floating across, and you know, of course, you're the ones going to make the final decision on that. But we saw that in other jurisdictions. We thought it was a good idea. We thought we'd see.
So when you have a violation now, a zoning violation, there's no, Mr. Clark, instead, you don't write a citation that's a penalty like
we don't have a numerical citation that we write. We just notify a person that they're in violation. If I might,
sure.
The permit center already has the ability, in the event that someone starts something that requires a permit without obtaining the permit, to double fee and to assess fines for not following the procedures. We were the only ones that all we could do was just send a letter out and say, you have not applied and obtained the CO. So I thought it was a great idea because it puts more meat into requiring persons to get a certificate of occupancy. Because over the years, we've just had a backlog of persons that did not get certificate of occupancies for whatever reasons, whether they didn't complete all of the inspection processes or they just didn't get it. But if you're able to find them without having to go to court, we believe it makes a much greater impact on encouraging persons to follow the law.
Yeah, I had no problem with, the temporary CO because obviously you have to go out and then you have to go again, and it creates
Right.
maybe several more trips for
And
your
also
staff.
the Christmas trees and the fireworks stand, those are other uses that are temporary, that we have to go out and check for those site plans, make sure that they're all in compliance and so forth.
Because I believe the cities, when they do their fee, it's like about $35 every visit that they come out, like on your electrical inspections and all that. So that's kind of in line. I mean, $75.
We're dragging far behind
Yeah.
the rest of the city. We're sort of playing catch up.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
All right. Anybody else? This? All right. Are those all the staff reports?
Yes, the only other thing I was going to tell you is you're going to get to see the zoning case for 4611 Monkhouse Drive, which is Mrs. Deborah Moselle again. It got remanded back from the city council. And so that'll be on your agenda in April. That's the one that y'all voted not to approve for the request for B2 zoning. And she's been in the process of trying to get a site plan approved to us. We're still waiting for all the details to come into us. It is possible, I don't know that I'll place a bet on this, but it's possible that the site plan could be already approved before you see this zoning case in April. And if it is, then I'll inform you of that. But remember, this is the zoning case that's separate from the site plan. So I would, if I were to say the site plan were fine, I'd say contingent on the zoning being changed. And so if you decided that you wanted to vote for the zoning, then you could. If you decided you want to stay the same way you did last time and said no, then it would go back to city council, I would imagine, as an appeal from Mrs. Sam. So, sorry, but that's coming back to you. So.
All right. And that was, we also covered the items for future discussion from, in that too with the UDC fee structure. So, board members, comments, board members. Mr. Pennywell, Ronnie?
Well, I did want to ask if, when we have someone that proposes a change to the UDC each time, what will be the I mean, will we take it up? Because I believe even if it's something that's not possible, are we going to at least consider everything take it up for a vote and say yes or no? And I think we should decide that now to be consistent and fair with the public. I mean, what's the best way to, because like Mr. Arsenault had
what's going to be our formal process?
Yeah, because Mr. Arsenault had an amendment, and he had some very good amendments, and he worked hard on that. And I just want to make sure that each time someone makes a proposed change to it, if there is a consideration given to it, like an official consideration. You know
But
what I'm
his
saying?
was
Just so
before the vote.
Yeah, but let's,
So
let
it's kind
me,
of different after that's been passed.
Well, no, we passed this, and I think it was said by multiple people that, this is a working document. When we see problems,
Right,
there's
but-
going to be changes. So, but using that philosophy, you'd say, well, we're not going to consider changes that affect people. So I just want us to implement something now to say, if someone comes to us, we'll say, it will be considered. You see what I'm saying? We can say no, but it will be a process to be considered when someone brings something to us, instead of picking and choosing which things we'll even consider or not. So
I do think that obviously we have to have some standard procedure. I think it's problematic when a citizen comes with a proposal to the podium and say, here's my proposal. I think that doesn't make it any less valid. I just think there needs to be a process. In other words, submit it to the staff will be the person who adds it, or submit it to a commissioner who then says, I'll take the lead in adding this. knowing that there's a democratic process. And so when the commission or the staff, a commissioner or the staff says, here's my deal, then it's, yeah, that sounds good, or no, we didn't. But there needs to be a process that doesn't say it's dead on arrival.
But yeah, so the public is trained, that's part of the public training is to, what are the systems and processes to say this is hurting my business, this is hurting my community, this is hurting my church, you know, these are my grievances, so how do we do that? But yeah, but I think in whether this is, I mean, I think that we've discussed this, at least the appeals not going to the back to the elected officials, because then it becomes a political game, and I think some of the council members and commissioners didn't want to have the political pressure. They just wanted it to be the way it is. Okay. Well, the other side of that argument has been, and I've spoken to people about this before this came up, was that they didn't want to remove their influence over something within their community that they didn't like. They didn't like telling their constituents, sorry, there's nothing I can do when that person elect. So there's both sides of the argument. So anyway, but I do think that, again, even if we vote this down, we should consider it, vote no, vote yes, whatever we want to do, but make sure that we consider everybody's suggestions to the UDC.
Yeah, well, let me say, obviously, we're not talking about the merits of this particular issue.
Exactly.
But we're talking about process.
Yeah.
And so I do think that we ought to be able to agree on what that process is. So maybe that when we meet at our April 5th meeting, we could have something in writing that perhaps can articulate what our process will be, and we can confer between now and then, obviously, to decide what that process might be, and then the board can accept that process as its normative process going forward, if that's okay with the board.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Nancy and then...
I was just going to say, to me...
Hold on 1 second.
To me, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, this is probably not unprecedented. I'm sure Bossier has a process. I'm sure Baton Rouge has a process. I'm sure Lafayette has a process. Can we see what they do for
Well,
amendment?
I was going to tell you, there is a process in the UDC
That's
for
what
text
okay.
amendments. So we already actually have that.
Mhm.
And it would be a matter of just educating the public as to how that process works and everybody else. And so we certainly can talk about that. on
We
the
highlight
April
that for the
5th
next
right.
meeting, right.
I mean, kind of right now, to try to do an amendment like what was proposed is a little strange, because the city council just voted yesterday not to go that way. So it's like a salmon swimming upstream. It's almost like you're kind of chasing your tail on that one. What we almost need to do is just wait until the UDC goes into effect on the 15th of May. And then once we've educated the public on that process for text amendments, which means it's open to the board members as well as the public, and if the staff sees a need for something that they want to propose to you, then that avenue is open, like the way Ronnie is saying. It's even Steven for everybody.
Right.
But I guess I would just say that to try to do anything now might be somewhat premature, so to speak.
The only comment I'll make about this, and it's a very valid point, is I think for public confidence, what we ought to do is to say, when we get a request like this, the first place it ought to go is on your desk. And then you can look at the Unified Development Code and you can say, just like we get through comments and remarks on a case, this is why it would work, this is why it wouldn't work, these are the pitfalls, because it may affect 5 places in the code.
Right.
And they don't even realize it's affecting in 5 different places. And so to get an in-depth analysis of the request back to us in a timely manner, that then we could sit down and say, well, this will work, or no, this won't work. But either way, I think there has to be a due process where the information, because they look at us, because we're the appointed people to be the final arbiter before it goes to the city or the parish. And so I think for us, we need information. And we need background on what they're proposing and why what they're proposing will or will not work, based upon what is current or what the city and the parish has also articulated that they did or did not want to do.
Right.
And so I think, to me, that process ought to be, if it comes to us, we'll forward it, expecting a full reply back within a certain time frame to be determined, that so it could be articulated as the merits, pro or con. Much like cases. You articulate the merits of a case, pro or con, and why, and so that way it can be done, and why it affects certain parts of the UDC code or whatever, so.
Well, basically, that's how we've handled text amendments in the past. You will request that we prepare one, and we get together and we give you a staff report, and it's almost it's a little bit different. Usually we do it in a memorandum form instead of a staff report form, because we're talking about something different. And then try to give you all the facts, and in some cases, if you need to see best practices or something of that nature, that's what we've done in our other text amendments.
Yeah,
that
when
we
you did the
prepare.
site plan review process, the new administrative site plan, that's what we did.
Right.
I could very easily see, I know Ronnie was pointing out the cases where they may feel it may be egregious, but look, this thing's gonna have holes in it.
Oh, yeah.
And we're gonna have to make amendments just to fix holes. I mean, it's not gonna
Or
be,
rec-
we're trying to be
recommend
egregious to anybody, it's
amendments.
just, we didn't see
We
that.
don't have any power to make amendments. We have power to
True.
recommend.
All you're doing is making recommendations, and then also you have to understand both the city council and the
Right.
parish have
Have
to
to
approve
adopt
it.
them.
We are not legislators.
Right, and if they don't agree, if one of those bodies doesn't agree, then it goes to the master plan subcommittee to work out the difference. So all of this is laid out, and I'm just trying to express to everybody, please just wait for the pieces to come together, and then I have no doubt there will be a list of people that want changes that'll be, from here to the wall in the first 6 months of that UDC. So I know that, and that's why we're going to have a pathway that is open to everybody that wants to pursue that legitimately. So.
Mr. Cooper, do I stop with you?
Yeah, you start with me.
Winter?
I'm good.
All right, Ms. Cooper? Dave Montour?
I'm good.
Ms. Smith?
Yeah, good.
Mr. Young?
The only thing I passed out to everybody and emailed it to them, it is my wishes that we defer any actions or questions or anything else to the next regular scheduled meeting. And I would encourage anybody who has questions about what I have wrote to contact me if they'd like, and I'd be more than glad to discuss it in the next 30 days until the next meeting. But no actions today whatsoever. All right? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
On that.
We not.
I'm just
Go ahead,
saying,
go ahead.
I just don't think those issues are appropriate for this type of meeting. I think under the bylaws, they are appropriate for an executive session.
The chair
So-
and I discussed that, and he's
Okay.
going to investigate that.
Okay,
And if that's
okay.
appropriate, that's where it'll go.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you all.
I will defer to legal advice on that, whichever they say, then we'll go that direction.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. And if there's nothing else to come before this commission, the meeting is adjourned.
Ms. Holly?
Matthew?